Okay, good morning everybody. Welcome to our panel discussion on employer branding. My name's Sarah Sturgis and I'm the Agency Director at SMRS. We're over on stand 11 if anyone wants to chat to us after this session. SMRS are responsible for employer branding and helping organisations to uncover the unique nature of their culture, to take that through the employer brand journey. And we help our clients work heavily with the attraction and the retention of staff for their organisations. I'm delighted to have a client panel with us today. So for a change, it's often me who's presenting. And I did actually realise I have had the good fortune of presenting with each of you over the last couple of years on employer branding. So slightly different approach today. What I'll do is I'll take you through there's just a brief introduction to some of the work that we've done, so it's just a short video. Then I'll introduce the panel, and then I will give you a link so that through the session you can ask some of your own questions. I'll be working two computers here so that I've got some questions coming through, and we'll fire those over to the panel as well. Okay? Some of the clients that we've worked with over the years are here, and then I've already introed myself, so I'm going to move on now to intro the panel. So if each of you wouldn't mind doing your own intros. So today's panel, first of all, Eunice, first on the mic.
Hello everyone, my name's Eunice Clements-Tweedy, definitely the longest name on the panel today, and I work for the Lego Group and I'm Global Head of Talent Acquisition. I've got about 20 odd years in TA. I absolutely adore it. I don't want to do anything else for the next 20 years, but my total passion is around connecting company's brand to the people brand and adding a bit of magic and really do some storytelling in the marketplace.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sam Ramsey. I am the UK Head of Resourcing at Balfour Beatty. Actually, Eunice used to be my boss when I was at Vodafone. We're all very close. I spend a lot of time in organisations doing transformation in resourcing and TA functions with a big focus on employer branding. So that's something I'm hugely passionate about.
Thank you. Carl?
I'm Carl Duplessis. I'm currently doing HR transformation in the NHS, previously being a Deputy HR Director in the NHS. I guess I'm all about people, attracting, retaining, developing people, but I think a little bit different for me is I've done public, private, almost all the sectors you can do, so I bring a broad range of skills, so that's me.
Thank you, Carl.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Devlin. I work for mydentist. We're the UK's largest dentistry healthcare provider. Like the panel, absolutely love what I do. I've been on a 3-year journey with the business, helping develop their culture and really transform their employer brand. So yeah, looking forward to talking to you about it today.
Brilliant, thank you. So if you'd like to go to the Slido URL there, obviously, if anyone wants to put their hand up and ask a question directly, well, you can do it that way, but this also allows us to capture a lot of your questions. And one of the things that we'll be doing after the event as well is collating those and producing a white paper on a lot of the feedback. So you might want to sign up for that as well. So you just need to go to that URL and use the code. I've got a few questions to get us started, so I'll start with those if that's okay. So you'll be passing the mic along, if that's all right. Don't fight over who answers first. So the first question was, how did you convince your business to invest in employer branding? And since you've got the mic, do you want to start with that, Rob?
Sure, yes. So our business is quite unusual. So we're a group of 700 what previously were independent dental practices. And our model is, again, unusual because all the dentists that work for us are associates. They're not employed by the business. And when I arrived a few years ago, when I was talking to the exec team, one of the big conversations we were having was that there was a real lack of belonging. So when you went round the 700 practices and you talked to the dentists or the nurses or the people that are providing this fantastic care about, why they're doing it and how they felt connected to our employer brand, it was just absolutely evident that there was no connection at all, because one day they were working for, Dr. Devlin, the dentist, and the following day they were bought out by my dentist. The practice was painted teal, and no work was done around really aligning them to that brand feeling. So it was through a lot of conversations with the exec about, what would the benefits be to our patients if we could transform that feeling and capture the imagination of all 7,000 of our employees to feel a really strong, passionate connection to my dentist and to our culture. And it's through that ongoing conversation with the exec and with our investors and with Sarah's support at SMRS that we managed to secure that funding. And I think it's fair to say it started off very much in recruitment. So it's about how can we, attract more dentists and nurses to work for us. But it's become something much bigger and much more profound. It really has been about creating our purpose, our values, and ultimately creating our culture, which, is really, really shaping the way we're transforming dentistry and providing patient care. So that's kind of my story.
Brilliant. Yeah, Eunice, would you like to continue on that same question? So how you engage the business?
Yeah, so I've been at the Lego Group about 5 months, and I'll share 2 things. So at Lego, we've never done our employer brand, which is extraordinary because our brand is pretty much loved and recognised globally. So we have slightly different discussions. So I'm discussing with the leadership team around the value of doing our employer brand, because we rely on so much of our consumer brand. I think our people brand is a different kind of proposition. So we have no problem attracting tens of thousands of applications a month, but we only recruit 2% of those applications. So my view is around recruiting and attracting the right kind of quality candidate, addressing some of our regional challenges, and we don't tell the marketplace half the cool stuff that we do. Like the other week, we had a doggy park afternoon for our employees. We have an amazing wellbeing program where everyone ends up in the meditation room. We have yoga every day. And we just don't share our stories, our benefits. And I think if we did, I think it would be super powerful. So we're in a slightly different place than you are. But I've also said to Lego, you should never do your employer brand straight away if you're new to the business. And I was just sharing to Sam, you've got to date the business a little bit. You've got to get under the skin before you enter into kind of like a marriage. And that's when you do your employer brand. So I've said probably about 6 to 12 months is when we start really amplifying and looking at our employer brand. So it's slightly different to you. Yeah. Sam?
At Balfour, I've done things slightly differently. So in organisations, I tend to find it's very difficult to sell an employer brand to an organisation where you attract a lot of people and you make hires. So they kind of then go, oh, okay, so what's the point? Because we're actually able to hire, so I don't really see what the problem is. And it's all very well and nice when you've got HR folks saying it will be the right quality of people and actually from a bottom line perspective and from a business perspective, sometimes they're like, meh, I feel like I've got hires, so I'm fine. So actually the best way that I've done it is be able to do it kind of by stealth. So you take pockets of major issues that you've got rather than trying to tackle the entire piece. So we had a particularly difficult skill set within our organisation, which is notoriously difficult to recruit for. We tested an approach which would be like a mini employer brand, we're able to deliver really great results on that. And then everyone was like, oh, that's kind of cool. Can we do this somewhere else? And so I tend to try and do it where you find a real issue, you solve that, and then you don't really have to sell it anywhere else because the business sells it to itself. And that tends to be how I engage the business in it.
And it worked effectively for you?
It did. We now have a new employer brand.
Yeah. Carl, do you want to add to that?
What I'm going to add is, I mean, NHS is totally different to, kind of a lot of private companies and what have you. For me, it wasn't so much about the recruitment because we've got a captive audience. It was about the retention. It was about building the brand and the engagement with the staff, and a good EVP will do that. Because ultimately, all we're doing is stealing from other hospitals. I don't know how many people know what the NHS is like, but we're a lot of hospitals all going after the same people, and we just needed to stand out. But the big thing was about how it made the staff feel and stopped them leaving. And when they went out to look for other jobs, they'd see our brand and go, well, actually, I'm in a nice place already. We're also a trust which is totally different. So the trust I did it for was London North West. It's big, it's hard, it's tough, it's a hard place to work in. There's other trusts which are easier and nicer and smaller and more compact. And so we had to be honest if you want to work in a place. There was the honesty there. And when you convey that message to the senior leadership teams, they get it, and they understand it. And if you can't convey that, then actually you don't need to do it because they're not going to get the buy-in. And that's what I did there. And we kind of slowly did it, a bit by stealth, a bit by everything else. And I think 4 different answers just shows there's not one way of doing it.
Yeah, definitely. And that links in nicely to another question, which was around leadership engagement. So when we've been working with organisations, we're very focused on ensuring that the development of the employer brand is something that's connected with the marketing teams, but also the leadership team within an organisation as well. Because you really risk it getting derailed at some point in the process if that support's not there. What are your stories around leadership engagement?
I almost lost my job. And I think it's because we were in the exec team meeting, the board meeting, and we did the presentation. And it's new. I mean, people in the NHS, they back on the NHS brand, and it's not something they've had to do. And so when we were showing them all these creative methods and options for them to choose from, everybody got really personal. And they'd stop thinking about, actually, it's not for them. We're not trying to hire you as a CEO or a director of the board or what have you. It's for the staff. It's for the nurses. So when I told them that all their opinions didn't matter, I was kind of put in my place very quickly. But it was an honest conversation with them. And I think if you can have that honest conversation with the board, and you're lucky to do that, then it's there.
Yeah.
I've got a great example as well. I didn't lose my job. So I almost lost your job. So I worked for an FMCG before Lego called Kerry Group, and they do really cool food and beverage and ingredients, etc. And I joined them a few years ago when they were in a whole heap of trouble, and we were having to insource our recruitment practice and build everything from scratch, which as a TA leader, as many of you know, is an absolute dream. But I knew we could not get to our employer brand for a little bit because we had the hygiene factors to administer. So I spoke to the leadership team and I said, this is what I'm going to do with the team for the next 12 months, but I will come back to you in 12 months' time and I'll ask for a bit of money and a bit of your time and a bit of resource. And they were very sceptical. It's an Irish-based business. The board was white, male, Irishman, very difficult to convince, no social presence, didn't know what LinkedIn was, and they were hugely sceptical of me coming up and saying, yep, we're going to fix it. So the months ticked past, and I did what I said I was going to do, so built that trust and that respect, and I kept dropping in the whole employer brand, EVP part, and when the time came, the 12 months ticked over to 12 months and one day, I went to present to them again, and I said, do you trust me now? And they said, yep, but do you understand what we're going to do? And they said, yes. We're a little bit scared. And I said, we'll do this shoulder to shoulder. And we did our employer brand with Sarah and the team, with the leadership team. And we asked them to do some really crazy stuff. And they trusted us. And we did some really cool stuff. And we had a fantastic employer brand. So go early, go softly, but deliver on your commitments, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with what Eunice said there. It does take some time. One of the things that's important to remember is that you're selling, depending on what your organisation is, if you're not, whereas before is in retail. So being in retail, they understand marketing, they understand customer. I'm now in an engineering firm, and they don't get that quite so much. So a big learn for me at the leadership level, actually most levels, was to kind of take things back down to the very basics, and to get them, but also then to get them really excited. So talk to them in their language, the things that they care about, not the things that you care about, because sometimes there's a mismatch there. And these are the leaders of the organisation. This is as much their organisation as it is yours. So it's really important that they are bought in and they get excited about what it is, but they have to understand what you're trying to achieve for their organisation. So it's really important that you kind of talk to them on their level. And it takes some time, and it's, you know, sort of drip feeding bits of information in. As Eunice said, you don't sort of go in one meeting and hope everyone agrees with you, and you can then just crack on with an employer brand. But I spent a lot of time at the XCOM talking about what I was trying to do and why I was trying to do it, but also in an appreciation of them. And so I was very honest and said, look, if I'm really honest, when I came here, I came here because my former boss asked me to come across. I would never have applied to work for the company I'm in. Because for me, from a retailer, I'm just not remotely interested in building stuff. I was like, okay, whatever. But now I'm in it. I absolutely adore it. It is a phenomenal organisation, and it is a great culture. It's so exciting, and there's so many opportunities. And I was thinking, that's what I've seen. So that's how I need to get everyone else to see. And so then they started to get excited because that's what they've always wanted to be in. And what we're not looking to do is to recruit the same people. We need to broaden. So for them, it's like getting them really excited. And our CEO is super excited about it. And he likes talking about it as much as possible now. He's an employer brand expert.
Excellent. We've got some great questions coming in. So I'm going to maybe suggest this one goes to Carl, because I know you've had an experience around this particular question. So the question here is, what advice would you give to somebody who is developing an employer brand in an organisation that has gone through a lot of change and some of it has negatively impacted their employer brand?
Okay, so...
I was thinking of the bank.
So was I. So put an employer brand into Co-op Bank. And that was tough. That was just after our lovely minister. And the £4 billion black hole, and separated from Co-op Group. So not a lot of good news. And that's about finding. There's two things. If you've had a lot of change and you've had a lot of negativity, you've got to be honest about it. Don't try and fool potential employees that everything's okay, because if they realise that you've actually accepted it and you're looking to change, then that's obviously important. But obviously, you sandwich that in with all the good stuff. So the Co-op Bank is very ethical. It's very much around those areas. And actually, the people who weren't right up at the top actually cared about the bank, and it was a good environment to work in. So it was about pulling out those pieces there, but actually not shying away from the bad news and the bad stuff. I mean, it wasn't just about what we'd done as a bank. It was the whole banking industry at the time as well. So we were honest about that and what we were doing. The one thing I would say about that is you've then got to be very careful with your more corporate marketing, because on one hand, you don't want to have a brand which says, yeah, we've messed up, but we're going to fix it all. So come and join us and come and work with us, next to a page which says, hey, trust us with your money and come and bank with us. That's not going to work. So you have to make sure you get that right. So think around the business and their commercial needs, but just be honest. That's what we did.
And one of the other questions is around sorry, what was it? It's just gone out of my head. Oh, yes, how closely you work with marketing teams. So that's been something I think all of us have worked together a lot on. Rob, do you want to answer that around?
Yeah, definitely. In short, very closely. So similarly, not as bad as the bank. You know, one of the things which became clear to me not long after starting with the business was that we did have a really bad reputation amongst our associate dentists, and a lot of the hygiene factors weren't in place. So I had to work sort of really, really hard with the marketing team and also with our internal communications team to ensure that there's a really balanced set of messages that were going to our internal colleagues where we're trying to build advocacy, but clearly we need to put the hygiene factors in place around, you know, with the dentist chairs working, with the air conditioning units working. So it became a really integrated programme of activity which mainly centred around internal comms and engagement. We developed a really cool advocacy programme with some of our senior regional clinical leaders who led out with a lot of the messaging, and that was then reinforced with PR and trade messages into a lot of the big dentistry and nursing trade mags. And then also from a patient marketing point of view, we're wanting to balance up a lot of the messaging based on the value set that we created. So it sort of became and still is a very, very integrated set of initiatives sort of led out from resourcing, from a brand, employee brand values perspective. But I would say a really big emphasis in our organisation is placed on internal comms as well. So making sure we've got really strong clinical advocacy, you know, in the field to sort of really drumbeat the messages out. And then as well as that, you know, balance messaging out to patient marketing as well. So yeah, it's been a really cool process actually to get so many different people involved in balancing the messages up.
Yeah, and Sam, you work very closely with your marketing team as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super important, and it can be a contentious issue, I think, and it's one where what we've tried to do is make sure that they're involved right from the start with everything, and that there's a clear balance about what does an agency do and what does the marketing function do, because I think that's where you can get a bit of difficulty, and they can get a little everyone's smiling like yeah, there's a little bit of angst, which is totally understandable. So it's what we try and do is then recoup on any project that we do is, okay, well actually this is your part of the project, and this is the agency's part of the project, this is the recruitment team's part of the project. So we try and set that out all the time and then revisit that. But it is really important because they have the voice of the organisation also, and you know, they're a big part of some of the things that we're looking at the moment regarding our internal careers community, and actually if it wasn't for them we weren't able to get a lot of the information and the direction that we've got at the moment. So it does work, but it takes some time.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that worked really well with Balfour Beatty was your marketing team integrated in some areas of employer branding. They integrated with our creative team as well, so that they were learning and understanding how to use that employer brand as we developed it. So it wasn't something where we would create something and throw it over for them to pick up. You know, they were coached on how to bring it to life, and how the recruiters as well could bring it to life through workshops. So I have a great question yet, and I'm going to hand it to Eunice, I think, which is, what have you not done that you would love to do?
In employer brand?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a very hard question, sorry.
It's a really difficult question, and I will think about my current brand, because we've never done anything for Lego before around employer brand, which is extraordinary. I would love to do something no one has ever done before, and I'm not sure what that is, but I want to make sure that we do it first. So probably not a very specific answer, but one that's on my mind. Something that we did do at Kerry Foods, which I don't think anyone else has done, is we body scanned some of our employees, and we made mini models of them, and then we embedded them into their people stories. So real life mini figures, and I've got one at home. The children tend to move it around the house, which is a little bit disturbing, but it is 100% accurate. And I think the guys who were doing the body scanning worked on films like The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings to do kind of the big kind of scenes. And I think that was a first, certainly for our industry.
Yeah.
So that,
definitely a first for us as well.
Yeah, and that was super cool. But I want to take it up like 1,000% with Lego and do something really unique. So maybe next year this time, I'm hopefully being able to share a little bit more detail about that answer.
Excellent, thank you. Sam, anything for you?
I was hoping you might
It is a very hard
that.
question.
Yeah, it's a really hard question. Is there anything I haven't that I would really want to do? do you know what? I don't have anything in my mind that I specifically want to do. It'll probably that I just come up with something at the when I need. Yeah, there's nothing that's burning. I'm sorry.
You will ring one day.
Yes, yes. Yeah.
I'll keep you on the next question then. So the next question is around how you've flexed your employer brand for different audiences. So the question came through as potentially for a tech audience, but that could be, I assume, for graduates, apprentices, something like that.
So we've done that actually. We've got 3 actually. We're just about to launch the 4th test for the flex of the employer brand. Bear in mind, we only completed it earlier this year. So it's really important that you understand. So this is the difficulty is that people work so hard to get an employer brand. You then all the building of it, then the launching of it, and everyone goes, okay, awesome, that's done. And it's like this, it's never done. It's the constant evolution of that. And actually and generally as an organisation, when you get an employer brand, it is something that is essentially a one-size-fits-all. So there has got to be elements of it that changes depending on the audience in which you're talking to. So our emerging talent, which are our graduates and apprentices, looks fundamentally different. It will do, and it launches in a couple of weeks, look fundamentally different to the experienced hire. Because what's important to them, the customer base is very different. Actually, it doesn't have people in it. It's all CGI and quite fun. We also then did a slightly different element for our tech. And it is kind of based off the same employer brand, but it looks more, it's more tech orientated, and the creatives and actually what was different about that element is that I know that, or we all know that from a tech perspective, developers and so on and so forth are interested in hearing what other developers, other like-minded people have to say. They're not interested in what I have to say or HR or the corporate messaging has to say. So actually what we then did is we kind of reiterated the employer brand, but based on their own stories of the leaders in our organisation and what they like about the organisation. So actually the message comes from them and not from the company. So it was them first, company second, if that makes any sense. So you do need to need to mix it up a bit.
And I think it's fair to say there's still a consistency throughout everything because it aligns to the UVP that was created. Yeah. So you keep going back to almost the building blocks, even if you want to create something that looks and feels a bit different based on that audience. And then the other aspect of it might be on location as well. So if you, for example, want to flex the employer brand because it's geographically going to a different country, and how you might communicate in those particular countries as well. One of the next questions is around measurement. Now, this is something very close to our heart because at SMRS we're looking at how we measure employer brands more effectively for organisations. So we'll be launching a tool over the next couple of months to help us do that. But what's been really interesting is the research that we've been doing with a number of clients around how you're actually measuring at the moment. Do you want to give us sort of, Carl, do you want to talk about how you're measuring things?
So there is the standard, you know, the number of recruits, the engagement, all of that. In the last one I did at London North West, I kind of measured it by the get it factor. And that is without any pre-discussion about it, without any explanation of the brand, if you could just put it in front of your existing employees and say, this is our employer brand, and if they get it, then you know you've got it right because it's them. And so that's something that I was really keen on and did come out that, yeah, that's what it feels like to work here. That's why I want to work here. They get it. And that's what I was looking at. Of course, the board didn't look for that. They looked for all of the other ones that I've just mentioned. And of course, you go through that. And for me, the other one was where you can capture dropout because people deselect out is also important because they know it's not right for them. Everybody will keep on applying because they want a job and they need a job. But if somebody purposely drops out and you can capture that, that's hard. Depends what systems you've got in place, but that's good for me as well.
Yeah. Is that the same for you, Rob? Or?
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things in my experience was when I began the journey, it was very much from a recruitment point of view, but I would say now it is as much about retention, if not more about clinical retention. And what we've done is we've surveyed very, very frequently, and we've developed a really comprehensive clinical events programme. And one of our values is around a place to grow, and through the research that we conducted, it was really clear that continuous professional development is one of the main reasons a clinician is going to stay with us. So it's just constantly surveying back against the core values to ensure that there hasn't been movement within the groups that you're messaging to, because what motivates a dentist is slightly different to what motivates a nurse, is different to what motivates different clinical specialists. So it's constant surveying that I found most beneficial. And I think, like Carl's, steering away from this sort of traditional quantitative, are we getting more career site visits? Yes. Is the quality of hire going up? Yes. But looking more through dialogue with the clinicians as to do they understand it and is it really connecting with them emotionally has been the best way for us to do it, I'd say.
Yeah. And the next question is around how you launched your employer brand. Eunice, do you want to talk about sort of some of your experience there?
Go big or go home. You've invested all this time, energy, money. Don't do it softly. Your employees and your employer will thank you for it. So at Kerry Foods, when we launched Employer Brand, we went big. We did social, we did internal games. One of our Employer Brand pictures, on our website was a sunrise, but it was an orange with two little people sitting on it. So we hid oranges all around our campus and then had a competition around who could find the orange and what page and value that attributed to. So it was just building some fun for your employees, share externally. One cool thing I did at BP when I was launching the brand there is we got all the leadership team seating on bean bags, tweeting on Twitter, because we launched Twitter at the same time. And we just showcased the people, the leadership team, who were the curators of the brand, some of the teams as well. And we really spun a human element to that. So we are sharing this with you today, and I think if you can personalise your launch as well with a bit of fun, it always lands super well. Yeah. Sam, you've probably done some cool stuff.
Thanks. At House of Fraser, when we launched that one, we did it as a movie premiere. So it was the day before the site launched. And we invited the business to a red carpet, and we had popcorn, and we did the whole thing as if it was a movie premiere. They had invitations to the movie, and that was our Essence video that we did with SMRS and the career site. So they got a little clip of what they were going to see, and then they were all personally invited to the movie premiere. So that's how we launched.
Yeah, they got posters of themselves, didn't they? Movie style.
Yeah, exactly. Always, as creative as you can be. That's what you should do, definitely.
Okay. Sorry, yeah.
I just want to put I agree with everything you guys have said, and where you can do it. The NHS, we couldn't. We didn't have the money to do it. We'd spent all of our money on the brand itself. So the important thing is just launch it, get it out there as soon as you can, and it'll grow. Because in 6 months' time after the launch, it's the power of the brand that'll keep on going and get it out there. So absolutely, if you can, and get all of that, and get all of the hype out there. But where you can't, don't worry about that. Just get it out. Because if it's good, it'll last forever.
Yeah. And then one last piece of advice from each of you. For anyone who's just starting on that employer brand journey, what would you say? No.
I've got two pieces of advice. Choose your recruitment marketing partner super wisely. You have got to be, you really got to spend some time with them and be happy and really enjoy their time together, because it's such an incredible journey. So choose your partner wisely, a really good fit. And the second is around the engagement piece of your leadership team. Pick off your most difficult stakeholder early and hassle the hell out of them and become their best friend, because they will be the detractor in getting things signed off and getting stuff through. And if you can do that early, I think your path will be a lot smoother than perhaps it could be. Brilliant.
I totally agree. The only thing I'd add to that is, especially from a leadership perspective, is once you've done that presentation, they've signed up to doing the employer brand, continuously go back and give updates on where you are, where it is, what's going on. Don't wait to then do it and go back and go, ta-da! this is what we've done. They're like, oh yeah, I'm not really so keen on that. What was this again? So take them through it all the time. Every iteration, this is every results, so that they are with you on the journey, and then the ta-da at the end is something that they're already bought into.
Thank you.
For me, it's honesty. Make sure your brand is honest, good and bad. And I guess, and also don't make it personal. It's a creative thing, and we've all got our creative ideas. And the amount of times I've gone, oh yeah, that's brilliant, that's what I want, I'd do it. And then something else comes up and it's even better. So make it about the people you're trying to attract or engage. Don't make it about your own little ideas.
Brilliant. Rob?
Yeah, I think my advice is give it to your employees. You know, the most powerful thing that we did was just create advocacy and get people telling the stories about how the values in our employer brand resonated with them and their experience of providing patient care was just completely transformative. So that's my first bit of advice. And the second bit is just be really open-minded. So, you know, what we've ended up with at My Dentist is way beyond what I expected it to be. And, you know, I think as I went on the journey, I realised that it can have a much bigger impact on the organisation and the culture than you might first think.
Yeah, and we're coming to the close in terms of the time we've got available. I'm sure we could have, there's lots more questions, we could have been here a lot longer. And one of the questions I'm keen not to avoid though is there has been sort of a question around value for money. Obviously budgets can vary massively based on what you want to achieve in year one, what your plan is for year two, etc. A lot of the content that's created, if careers websites are in the mix as well. But just from a high level perspective, can the panel sort of give us a view on what have you sort of found around budgeting and how you've worked in that way?
It's just been a great investment for us because it's offset so much other expenditure around attraction or the typical, you know, expenses you're going to have around your advertising budgets and what have you. But as I said earlier on, you know, the big thing which came through for us was retention. So I think I developed the value proposition originally around recruitment, but in the end it's had so much more value and benefit, particularly around retention. So there are some pretty simple ways you can construct the ROI, and of course, you know, working with a brilliant partner like SMRS, they can really help you construct those arguments.
Thanks, Rob.
There's the financial and reducing vacancy rates and what have you. I mean, I think for me, yes, there's a cost. We had to look where we spent it. We had to actually go to our charity in the trust to get them to pay for it. We couldn't, and because this was about staff engagement, and they said, okay, here's your budget. And that's what we had to spend. So it wasn't me asking for a certain amount. And where I spent it was on getting the message right. You know, all the collateral you put around there and everything else you create that's where you can do things slowly or piece by piece and what have you. It's getting the message right. So if you don't have a lot of money, with the money you do have, get the message right. Invest it in speaking to your staff, making sure you get proper workshops together and worksmithing all of that. And if that's where you need to spend your budget, because that's what everything else holds true to. And then you can slowly do other bits after that.
Yeah.
I think you need to budget early. It is an investment, and I think we shouldn't shy away from that. Use your internal resources really well. There's a ton of stuff that you can use around your employee survey results, etc. I hired an extraordinary intern for a year, so it was a great way of getting talent in a cost-effective way. And something I've done before is I've asked for budget from different functions like PR, marketing, technology, because they had a super big issue there. And then once you collect all your pots together and add your pot to it, actually it suddenly becomes quite big. So don't feel that it's your budget that you have to spend on employer brand. You know, go out to the business and ask for some, and you'll be amazed what comes back.
I was going to agree with Eunice actually, because we don't have a huge amount of money, and it is an investment, and it is really important, and it's not an investment that you can say, okay, well, I'm going to spend X amount this year and suddenly we're going to reduce outgoing costs by this. You know, it takes a long time. So it is a long-term investment, which is very difficult to sell back to the business, that over time you'll be saving money in various things, depending on the situation that you're in, obviously your organisation's in. But definitely what you'll find is that people are, you know, when we want to do other things, so when we're launching armed forces, for example, we have some great ideas, and, you know, I don't have any more money left. So I can sell the idea, and people are already bought into the employer brand. They understand marketing now. So then businesses want to sign up and give us, like different parts of the business want to sign up and give us some money to do it, which is even better because putting the budget to one side, it means that they really are bought in to what it is that you're trying to do. So yeah, it's not always your own budget. It's there are always secret pockets of money you can get.
Thank you. Really big thanks to the panel today. I think that's been excellent. I hope you've all enjoyed it and got something worthwhile from it. If you've got any more questions around employer branding, come and see us on stand 11. And equally, I'm sure that the guys here will be hovering around our stand a little while if you've got any more questions for them once we leave here. So thank you, everybody, and thank you very much.